Well, good afternoon, everyone. A bit of a special Airfix and chill. Today, we're doing a lunchtime special because we have two really special guests in the chat, on the panel, I should say, which is Luke, the researcher from Airfix, and also Ethan, the designer of the Ferret. Nice to see you guys.
Hello. Nice to meet you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Joyce. We've also got James from To Boldly Go. We've got Matt from Model Minutes. We've got Captain VFC also there showing off his built hovercraft. Isn't that right, Matt?
It's mostly because I have nowhere to put it.
And because he should be working.
my lunch
He's
break. I got
away.
Quick mug of coffee.
Yeah. You did a video on that, didn't you, on your mug, I've just been told.
Yeah, it was just a load of silliness, yeah. It was fun.
Brilliant. We've got quite a few in the chat. Those who are in the chat, if you have any questions, can you put it in capital letters? And if it's whether to Luke or Ethan or to both of them, and then we'll try and get as many questions up as we can. But first off, I just want to, if you don't know Ethan is the newest recruit to the design team. Yeah. Is that correct?
I think I'm still the newest one.
Yeah, bar one.
Yeah, so 2 years now. So Ferret's the first one to be released.
Yes, yeah.
It
came out.
Careful now.
Yeah, same time as Land Rover. So a while waiting for the first one. So it's good to actually be able to talk about something I've done rather than just say, yeah, I'm a designer, but I haven't actually.
That's fair enough. What's your background then, Ethan? Can you explain your journey in becoming part of the Airfix team, design team in particular?
Yeah, so I've been doing product design all through school, so at GCSE, A-level, uni, all with the kind of thoughts to do something fun in the sort of toy design sort of area. I always used to do plastic model kits more in like miniatures when I was younger. So I've always been interested in. So obviously when this job came up, it was just like, perfect match made in heaven, really. And yeah, so just after uni finished and probably about 2-3 month gap before I joined here.
Wow.
Yeah, I've been good ever since. Really enjoyed it.
So why Airfix?
As I say, I really want to be enjoying what I'm working on because otherwise, it can just go on and on. Days of bore. I mean, with Luke anyway, it's a bit of bore. But yeah, because I'm building plastic models and it's my hobby anyway, getting that into kind of like work environment is perfect. So there's not many in the UK that do that sort of thing. So
and McDonald's have turned you down.
Yeah, McDonald's turned me down. Before, to be fair, they wouldn't let me join. So I
can see why.
Yeah, John fries with that. One whopper. Anyways, Luke, and also same with you. What's your background? Explain your journey into becoming part of the Airfix, or become. I think you're chief researcher. Is that correct?
Well, I could inflate myself and say chief design, chief researcher, but I am the only researcher. So yeah, roundabout way.
You're chief of yourself.
So very similar to Ethan, actually. My background is product design, so I did the same course as Ethan and the other designers, which is really helpful because when you're explaining stuff, it doesn't go well. When they're explaining stuff, it doesn't go straight over your head, and it means you can hopefully offer some advice at times, which is good. Aside from that, I've always been interested in military history, especially aviation. My dad was an anorak, stood at the end of Nuneaton train station in the 80s. So I converted him from trains to the light side of aircraft. And, I do foray into military vehicles every now and then, as Ferret sort of proves. So, yeah, very similar to Ethan. And I think the ambition of any designer is always to be able to walk into a shop or, be able to buy the stuff that you've designed. It's a bit like any builder or plumber. You go past a house, I worked on that. It's the same on shelves for us. We like to be able to go into a shop and say, we did that sort of thing.
That is the height of ego. Okay. And I don't blame you. I really don't blame you. See, I think it was Chris, the designer, said something that really impacted me about Airfix kits, and he said, as a designer, or you can say as a researcher as well, you don't actually design the full product. You only design and put your work into a product that is to be finished by others. And that was quite a thing. Most designers and whatever researchers, they go through the whole process right to giving a completed product to the person who buys it, basically. But you guys, you'll up to a point, and then it's then given to us as like a blank canvas, and then we go with the schemes, etc. And that really hit me a little bit. And I'm thinking, wow, I never thought of it that way. That you don't actually complete a product, do you? Really, it's still we finish it off, don't we? And that's the joy of it. So that I must write an article about my thoughts on that, because I said I never thought of it that way. As a brand and as a company, you're not actually giving out a finished product, are you? You're giving them something to be finished, which amazing. But Ethan, what aspects of design? Because you said we've got the Ferret Scout here. I just blow it. This is my version of it now. I know it hasn't got the aerials on it because I'm taking some model shows. I've got to find a way of attaching aerials without snapping off. But can I just say I thoroughly enjoyed this. I think it's lovely. And you can build it in just over a day, really. And yeah, the detail on it, I think it's a lovely kit, and I think whoever builds it will have hours of fun and enjoy finishing it. But what aspects of designing the Ferret Scout stretched your design talent, seeing that this is basically your, and I don't know why they gave you this one to build. No, I thought it was a little bit more simple. You did it backwards, so you did the Ferret Scout. So what have you actually learned from building this ferret as your first build or your first design?
Yeah, like something that took a lot of kind of getting to grips with at the beginning was just, I guess, like planning it out in a sense. One of the bigger challenges with the ferret is, although there's lots of flat surfaces, obviously there's that hollow space in the inside.
Yeah.
So although you've kind of got simple parts around, there's nothing actually supporting it on the inside. So it's really kind of like the build order and how to split the parts, so that's all fitting together like nicely and as strong as possible without kind of, like misaligning and then that being a problem later on in the build. So kind of getting to grips with that was the best way. I mean, I built quite a few kits before even starting to try and get some understanding of the way to do that. But that was one of the harder things to think of, because I say, luckily, when I got the research from you, I know what to do with the detail, and I've done CAD before, so a lot of that sort of stuff's a bit easier. But that's more of the, as I say, model kit understanding of how that's going to work.
Yeah. Fantastic. Panel, if you've got anything you want to say, you can jump in at any time. I've got a list of questions, but if the panel want to jump in at any time and ask anything,
I've got a question.
Jump in.
Popped into my head. So you were talking about having your aerials, and I was thinking maybe you could have them magnetically attached. And so this goes to the research and design team. Could in the future there be elements of the kit which are magnetic, such as the like the bombs or other elements that we can add and remove as and how we want to do them? I mean, even display stands would be a good use of magnetic elements. But how realistic for you is that?
From a design point of view, it's relatively easy. It's a logistics question at that point. Sounds really boring, but it's another thing within your supply chain. It's another supplier. It's more cost, importantly. Cost. So for every 5% we hear from on channels like yourselves, there is a 95% of people who would not have all the bells and whistles. They're happy with it as it is and paying less. So we always have to sort of tread this tightrope almost of, yes, we want to go to the nth degree of detail and extra possibilities, but then 95% of people, the sort of silent majority you don't hear from, wouldn't pay the extra cost. So we're always trying to be conscious of where we are in the market and sort of offer appropriately. So, your likes of Edward and sort of the higher end manufacturers, they know who they're appealing to. It's people that are into the hobby already and love that detail, really want to go into it. And obviously we still cater to that, but we also cater to the other end of the market. So we just have to be careful with it.
Cool, thank you. I think as a follow-up to that, and I know I've obviously asked this before, and I pretty much know the answer, but other people constantly ask me all the time on my channel, why do model kits not come with pilots or figures anymore? In the past, a lot of the time, a pilot would come, it'd be a generic one, but I know some of the smaller and 148, 172 scale kits, they tend to come with a generic pilot. But why so much now are pilots and figures not included?
Generally, it's obviously it always comes down to costs, and that's one of the reasons. It's really costly to get a sculpt of a figure done. So if you imagine statues of people like Alex Ferguson outside the football stadiums and things like that, you have to pay someone to sculpt it, and it's lots and lots of money. It's the same for miniature sculpts because they actually have to sculpt them bigger and then they get scaled down. So as we've gone on, obviously technology's evolved in this 3D sculpting, which has brought down the cost massively. And, it is something we're really looking at. But also it's a choice thing. So if you go to Telford, as I'm sure most of us will in just under a month's time, if you look at most of the models, they won't have any pilot figures in. And whilst people like to have them, and I totally get why, people grew up as kids putting pilot figures in, probably quite hastily painted or unpainted. It's a different skill set for a lot of people. You're good at painting aircraft, doesn't mean you're good at painting figures. That's why you'll see there's a whole SIG of figures and not vehicles, so it's almost different skill sets. To paint a figure is really difficult, especially convincingly. We totally get people want them and we want to include them, but it's costs, logistics, design time. For every month it takes Ethan to design, that's another month out of another project that's not happening. So, and that all adds up to one project out of 2 or 3 years missing almost. Yeah. So, it's a difficult thing, and I wish we could do it. And never say never. We still do include figures. One of the difficulties is you can't just have a generic figure. You need your British Second World War, your British Cold War, and obviously all the eras within, and the Fleet Air Arm. So you start building up this huge library of figures, and it all costs money, unfortunately.
Yeah, I get that. I do.
On the topic of figures, I've lined up a selection of Airfix ones on the hovercraft, but the comparison between these from the hovercraft, you can't really see them, and the ones here from the last 10, 15 years, these are just blobs. They actually look like people. It is incredible. I do actually have a question as well. I just saw the figures and saw an excuse to pose them. Relating to the ferret, is there anything that you're not happy with, Luke, about how it came out?
One of the things that I find probably the most annoying is that kind of like engine section of the back. Is it what do you call them, loops?
Yeah, the exhaust part of they're tooling.
Yeah, that's so thin that we worked around trying to do different ways to make it, look a bit more realistic and thin, but really I feel like it needs to be like
photo etch is really because if you scale, it's the problem age old with scale modeling. If you scale down something that's really thin already, it becomes impossible to mold. It's the same with that back section of the ferret.
Exactly.
You just can't mold it to be convincing.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of, again, talking about the silent majority, a lot of people won't even know what the real thing looks like. They'll model it anyway. So not saying that, that's our excuse. There are just limitations.
Yeah, it's just, as I say, if it was getting thinner, it would have just broken apart. We couldn't have reliable product quality in that sort of section. It's the issue as well with the draft of it all, where trying to get out the mold, where you can imagine at the bottom it's thicker, and then at the top it's slowly getting thinner. And try and play around with that as much as possible. So we did a few different techniques to see what it looked like, but we just weren't as confident with it. So let's go that way. So that's probably my biggest bugbear. But I still think you get a great model at the end.
Yeah, somebody mentioned it to me, Mike, because I did an article and one of the lads from Sprue Union commented on this section here, this bit here.
Yeah, that bit.
That's the bit there, and also with the exhaust, that side is too thick. Whoops, there you go. That's too thick. And and you are working with the mediums. That's basically how it works, isn't it? You're working with pure plastic. You make design choices because we know that photo etch will stop that kit being sold to 8-year-olds. Now it's got to be 14 because it's photo etch, it's sharp. But then I do kind of like that idea, but still you will release a quick build kit that you can sell to a 6-year-old, but when it's got Coca-Cola written on the side, you can't ship it or sell it to anybody under the age of 18 because it's...
You're right when you talk about photo etch for different ages. Again, you have to look at what you're selling. So an Airfix model of a Ferret, your age isn't so much of a concern. But obviously it is. You're limiting that part of the market. But I'd say generally that appeals more to the starter set side of the market. It's again logistics. It's another bit that you need to put in. And I think there was a question on the side, one of these comments, talking about why don't we do sort of normal and then expert sets. And that could be possibly a route there where you do an expert set with photo etch, and I think someone else had mentioned masking as well. Not saying that we are, but it's always something you can consider because you then appeal to that 5% that want all that extra gubbins that go into a kit. And obviously other companies do that already. Again, it's extra work for us on this side of the team. But if it makes money, then who are we to argue? So, never say never with masking sets and photo etch.
You do everything at a price point. We've already balked at the fact that Revell have announced this Meteor that's hundreds of pounds, but it's got to have everything in it. When really some of us just want the Meteor to build at £23.99. The Ferret Scout for 24 quid. That's a lot of plastic, a lot of detail, and you put your heart and soul in it. For £23.99, I think it's a bloody bargain. Do you know what I mean? So I can see why you didn't go down the photo etch route, though. There's nothing I see. I don't suppose. There could be a way of getting photo etch to do the exhaust and stuff, but you get what you pay for in the kit. And
there are plenty of companies out there that will,
or 3D printing,
and they still have to, buy the Airfix kit, which is great, and it's good for the hobby.
Hey, there he is, the man of the hour, Dale. Hiya, my friend. How are you?
I'm all right. Yeah, I'm certainly not the man of the hour. But, these two boys are, aren't they? They're on the call with you.
Yeah, definitely. How are you, my friend? All right?
Everyone all right? Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah. If you don't know Dale, he's the guy who pops into everybody's live stream just to make sure we're doing it right. Dale is head of brands. So we've got he's just popped in to see us, and we've got one question: is why we're not seeing space or sci-fi kits from Airfix, Dale?
Wow, why are you not seeing him yet? So
it's a good
we have a bit of a history of space and sci-fi stuff. Most of the sci-fi stuff, though, it wasn't all our tools, so it's quite difficult bringing it back out in vintage classics. But space is something that we always looking at. Obviously, there's a lot of interesting things happening in the world right now. So, and you asked us that question a couple of years ago at Duxford in front of 200 odd people. I seem to remember, Moz. But
But people would also like to ask the question on the chat, so we want to get them involved as well. But
it's space and sci-fi is something that we're always looking at. And obviously, sci-fi licensing complications. So, should we design and tool something up that we can only ever use if it's within a license? It could be quite dangerous. It might not pay back within that license period, and we may never be allowed to re-release it. So that'd be quite a waste of money. And I'm sure you guys would much prefer something else that we can release all the time. So
that's a great answer. And also, can you release it in different schemes as well? Isn't it? That's part and parcel of it. Adding to the tooling itself. So it's
pros and cons. There's pros and cons because you might, by doing space stuff, for example, you might tap into a market that we're just not in. So there's volumes there that you don't necessarily need to worry about extra schemes, and that's the mentality that we take with our current range, and something that Luke is very good at doing. So,
Yeah. Brilliant.
I realise I look like I'm stood in a field like Father Ted and a cow.
Not with that sort of thing.
I feel like I should put a trainer here, and it looks like my feet are just.
Ethan, back to you. Do you design one kit and focus on that day in, day out? Or do you design like 2 kits or 3 kits and then flip between the two? Because I can see that that would have a benefit. Because I know you've done the Land Rover as well, obviously. So, you know, because I can think just doing something day in, day out, surely you need a break and move on to something else to help you get the creative and the design juices flowing, sort of thing.
Yeah, so normally how it is for the CAD work, it's one project at a time.
Right.
So I was working on the Ferret for sort of like 6 months, I think.
Yeah,
so doing that every day for 6 months, and then getting that sort of with tooling to manufacturing, you know, layouts or how to know frames, instructions, all of those sort of things. That's all taking place while I started doing the CAD for the Land Rover. So it's almost like you're doing the design at the same time as you're doing the finishing touches on everything else.
Yeah.
So it can like pile up a little bit. But normally there'll be a good few months where it's just solid CAD every day, which can be tiring.
Yeah.
But they love their jobs.
Yeah,
so it's
we love it.
Yeah.
They are really complex, as I'm sure you can appreciate. Trying to understand one vehicle is difficult enough. If you were to split between 2 days on a Ferret, 2 days on a Land Rover,
lose focus.
and Friday on, you know, whatever. Careful.
Yeah.
Actually move slower because you'd spend a good couple hours each day trying to remind yourself about that project. So we have to stick to blocks.
Yeah, got to be in the right headspace when you're doing the design, because otherwise, I'd say you'll miss things which you'll have to deal with later. So, yeah, got to stay focused.
I'm going to leave you now because obviously it's these boys' call, but I just wanted to say hello to everyone watching. So, thanks very much. Keep it all up.
Yeah.
Dale, thank you for allowing them to do it. Thank you very much.
Let us out of the cage.
When I first heard this, I asked Ethan to come on, and Dale said, "Hey, come through me." All right? Yeah, I got the email. Because I think I want to know is who's in front of you guys. You got like a team going. Careful what you say. Like,
there are balls up in front of us.
I sort of want to show you, but you're bound to spot something. But so no, there's a glass wall. So and
is that?
inside the glass wall, which obviously no.
There's a glass wall with 2 graves dug to the other side.
Yeah. It's ready, boys.
The last time I did a live stream with you guys, there was Brooke there sitting in a big comfy chair, like just waving.
She's not in the office today. Amanda's here today, but no one's.
Is that the Scottish one?
Yeah.
Ah, yeah.
We call her Amanda, but yeah. All right, guys. See you later.
Yeah, she's easy to edit in video. She is definitely.
Yeah.
Luke, so on that respect, then, how do you balance your time with so many projects? Because I understand, you got the designers working on one thing.
With great difficulty. So there are 5 designers on the team.
We're like a pack of children.
Yeah. Well, Ethan is. There are 5 designers on the team, plus we have an intern with us this year who will be on some main projects as well. So 6 designers and then 1 of me, and obviously I have to research their projects. And also, do my backroom role of managing the artwork side of it, so all the layouts and picking schemes and various bits like that. So with great difficulty, basically, in a week at the office, you come back to what seems like 2 weeks worth of emails. So it is here, there, and everywhere because I wear quite a few hats. And obviously, designers, it's not just I hand over a pack of research to them and there you go, off you go. It is really back and forth. So you do have to be ever present and always in contact with them to see how it's going. We obviously do regular sort of reviews, but not really officialized ones. It's just over the shoulder because we all sit next to each other. It's just come over and see how they're doing and point out bits to watch out for. So yeah, it's difficult. That's why it's taken so long to organise this call.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
Like we were so back and forth on the Ferret just because you have so many reference pictures and there's so much stuff out there, which is not necessarily wrong, but from different periods or people have custom modded their stuff that obviously I'm trying to do the CAD and it's all I'm trying to take in as much as possible or trying to do the kit. And there's bound to be some things which aren't lining up with the certain release we want to do. So we had to we discuss loads all the time about it, really.
Sick of him by the end.
Yeah.
Well, with that question then, James, do you want to ask Luke your question about...
Right, as a researcher, Luke, how do you deal with Franken tanks or Franken planes, which are basically obviously in the museums and they're made out of about 4 or 5 planes? So
well, you have to do a lot of research before you visit your first aircraft. So you avoid them like the plague if you can. Trying to think of one. There's a Hunter at East Midlands Aero Park that's made up of, as you say, about 4 aircraft. So you can't go into that and expect it to be perfect because you're expecting other people who have researched the aircraft to have put it together right. So where you can, you want to find as original aircraft as you can. You'll obviously offset that. So you say you're only looking at one aircraft, try to find the most original you can. But I'd say you want to find as many aircraft as you can, and always as original as possible. So you know that can
good luck finding a Harrier that's original.
Well, yeah. So it's really difficult, and you have to really get boots on the ground and go and see the things. Because something might be perfect according to the internet, but you get there and speak to the engineers, and then they say, "Oh, you know, watch out for this bit, watch out for this," and this happened way back when. So it can take a lot of legwork to work out beforehand, going onto the ground, and then quite often you might get to an aircraft and go, actually, you know, is this what we want to base our design off of? Because normally there's a primary aircraft that everything's based off of. Sea King is a good example of us. I think we visited something like 30 plus aircraft to make sure we were doing it right, because there are so many changes. Obviously, you can't do that for every aircraft or vehicle. Ferret, we didn't visit as many, but we did visit quite a few. And you do pick up on lots of small details that, you know, even the most detailed book doesn't mention, because it's so inconsequential to the history of the vehicle. But we're not into the history of the vehicle. We're into the actual what is on that piece of metal there. So
it's always that thing we go and see something before we kind of start designing normally, or just as we're starting, take about 1,000 pictures, and then you get a month and you're like, why did we not take a picture of that bit? And it's because it's just something you wouldn't even think to take a picture of. But you really need to get just everything, all the information possible, because you need it later on.
Yeah, and you know, we, as I say, try and do as many visits as possible. So that I do lots of visits beforehand, before you know, it's even on the radar of the designers, so that I can hand over as complete a research material as possible. But then we try and organise sort of 3 or 4 weeks into a project to let for a designer to go see the aircraft. This lets them sort of really get into the depths of the project and understand the aircraft. And normally then they can go, right, I'm missing so and so and so and so. So we organise a trip. We're going off on one soon, aren't we? Can't say where or for what, but
yeah. Our spies will be out.
With the spies in it, spies.
Yeah.
Sounds interesting. What's your favourite area to research then,
Luke? That's good. I'd say the project I'm working on now. No. Goodness, I love the projects that are challenging. So by that I mean Ferret is a perfect example, because if you look for written material on the Ferret, there is very little. Whereas if you look at written material or just modelling stuff for Spitfires, it's the opposite. For example, everyone's an expert on a Spitfire. Which has its own challenges, because everyone says different things, but they think they know what they're talking about. Ferret, not so much in terms of the intricacies of the design. Obviously, it's quite old. It's to a 48 specification, so not quite as old as a Spitfire, but Vehicles generally aren't as loved, so there's not as much written about them, or modelers generally don't talk about them as much. So I'd say vehicles are really challenging because of that. And you could say the same about aircraft. The more unloved ones, Gannet, for example, had to think about, has that been announced? Gannet, for example, there's a few books out there, but you really have to go and visit as many as possible and use your analytical skills to work it out.
Yeah.
Do you find that newer subjects are actually harder to research for that same sort of reason?
Yeah, so if you took a F-35, for example, they're nigh on impossible unless you know someone that can get you near one, which obviously the RAF and the Marines, US Marine Corps, obviously aren't very keen for you to get near with a 3D scanner for some reason.
Go on, just the cockpit, nothing serious.
So, yeah, they are challenging because there's not as much information out there. And more modern aircraft, as time's gone on, the RAF and various organisations have become better at keeping records and worse at releasing them after a certain number of years. So, you try and find drawings for Hawker Hurricanes or pre-war aircraft. There's not much out there. But everything post-war, it gets better and better and better, but finding them becomes more difficult because it gets entrapped in all the bureaucracy of, things like BAE, that is an amalgamation of many different companies. They hold on to things, and they're so big that, things go missing. They've got them, but where are they?
We need to ask Farnborough, because that's where all the microfiche went for all the drawings that were scanned in Dunsfold. All the microfiche went to Farnborough.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. So Farnborough obviously have the Black Sheds. It's the oldest dedicated aviation building in the world, I believe.
Look at you.
Yeah, there you go. I'm not just based as researcher. So we obviously talked to a load of archives, Farnborough being one of them, to understand what's out there, depending on what type we're looking at.
Yeah. Because they found us the drawings for one of the original P1127s, believe it or not. When we were restoring the one that's at Brooklands. So obviously it was missing its internozzle fairings on the wings.
Well, you'd be amazed at what they have and also what they don't have.
Yeah.
Some really niche things they'll have whole piles of information on, and something really mainstream, there'll almost be nothing, just the manuals you can get online. And you just think, who's come up with that? And the sad truth is a lot of it ended up in furnaces, people's lofts, because if you think records back in the day, they weren't just, a megabyte on your computer. They were huge plan drawings that took a load of resources to keep dry, out of the weather, and a lot of space. So once they were done with, it was a burden. So they get burned or thrown away.
Well, it's like the mosquito stuff they found the other year when they were not knocking down the hangars, and they found all the designs.
Wow. Yeah. This is for both of you. Name something that you would love to design and research into a kit. And also, part of that question was, the reason I came to that question was also, has anybody come to you and said, please, can you design and manufacture this, our vehicle, our plane or whatever, into a model kit? Has anybody actually come to you directly and asked for that?
While Stephen thinks about his answer, I'll jump in and say we have had people ask for their vehicle. Obviously we say to them, well, if it's not something we would normally do, you'd have to pay us. Okay. If it's not a reason, if we normally wouldn't do it, it's because it wouldn't make us money, the market's not into it, whatever. The closest we've come to that is people suggesting to us that we do something, and Ferret is one of those. A chap at the Tank Museum said, well, no one does a decent Ferret in injection molded, and here we are 2 years later, and he's a very happy chappy. Because sometimes those suggestions make you realise, well, hang on, why?
Like Concorde and Bearcat, for instance.
Yeah. Well, when the Bearcat comes out next year. Oh wait, no.
Never happen.
Right, Ethan. What's your? I need to think about it as well. So, what's yours?
Oh, probably I'd love to say like a safety ferret. That would be pretty good.
Oh
wouldn't it?
wow, all your dreams have come
wait.
true.
I don't know. I quite like more commercial stuff. I think something like a tractor would be really fun.
Yeah.
I am surprised that Airfix haven't jumped on the bandwagon of doing when it's their anniversary to re-engineer the original Ferguson tractor and then just release it, because I think actually re-engineer it or reverse engineer it to the exact specifications and design and look to what it was back in 1950, whatever it was. I think that would sell bucket loads.
I'm not so sure, Moz. Is my answer. So
is it that bad? I've seen pictures of it. Looks all right to me.
Of history, it certainly is, and if you take, we're paying Ethan millions of pounds a month just to design. So, if you took Ethan's salary or money we'd have to pay him in that time, because they do have to get paid, unfortunately.
We get paid.
I thought they get a little. What's it called?
I'm not sure if you add all that up, you would sell as many as you need, but it would be fantastic. And who's to say with the advent of 3D printing, you can remove the manufacturing costs out of that and just supply the files as a nice anniversary thing. Thinking out loud. So
that's a really good think out loud. That is, I like that.
Yeah. But, trouble is, Moz can only print a peg.
Yeah.
Hey, you should have done that. That's it. That is what was missing from the Humbro 3D printer. You should have just given them the files.
Moving swiftly on. Moving swiftly on.
Because that was another question in a minute. Is, in all fairness, right? Do you actually use Humbro paints for your models?
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
Nice.
As layouts, obviously I do a lot of the paint scheme work, and because Humbro is under the same roof with us, we obviously specify our paint supplier.
Yeah.
So we do use it, and do suggest them colours. If we've got a model coming out that uses a specific colour, we're always suggesting things to them. Whether they follow our suggestions is another matter. But going back to that original question though, tractor for you. I think for me, following on from Lego, I would do a massive Concorde, just because it's a Concorde or a TSR2, brand new tool. Yeah. That's what I would do. But maybe I just like white aircraft. I don't know.
I think that's a really good statement. White aircraft. You're right. See, the TSR2 is in that really particular, in a real weird sort of position, because I don't think you could release it as a vintage classic, even though it was originally that amalgamation Humbro ownership when it was first designed and thought about, wasn't it? So, but the price of TSR2, 60 quid, 70 quid at scale model shows, must show you that the interest is there for you to either release it in some way or retool it as Airfix should have tooled it.
There you go. First comment almost. TSR2, please. So someone jumping on. TSR2 is a funny thing, and Concorde is also sort of along the same lines. TSR2 has this cult following. What could have been? What if? And it could have been Britain ruling the world with their aircraft dominance, and I think that's what people like. They like the idea of what could it have been. And that's why I like it in particular. And Concorde is much the same. It comes from a place of pride in sort of Britain doing well at something. Aviation is something we regard ourselves quite good at, and I think it proves we are quite good. Us and the French. It's that pride in your nation's creations.
Yeah.
Nice. Very good. Very good.
I didn't know it.
That,
yeah.
I guess you have the problem that people are likely to buy one Concorde or one TSR2, whereas you can buy half a dozen Ferret Scout cars.
Well, yeah, and it goes to one of those comments you've got on the side. Would we consider a Superine S6B? Yes, plastic subject, but where's your second and third release? Because you get one shot, you get S6B doing its record, the Schneider Trophy, and then you get TSR2 doing its one aircraft that flew, and then Concorde in white, and you get a Pepsi livery as well, obviously, if you do Air France. But there's no extra bits you can add in to get added intrigue or interest at a latter point. So in the end, you have to rest these products for 10 years. So you're making money back. I hate to talk money because that's not what we're in the hobby for. But from our perspective, making the money back, you can't release it as often as you want. You can't make the money back. You can't. Keeps the lights on for us if we do models with multiple releases.
I've got 2 questions in the chat because their model kit stuff has been fantastic. He sent some questions through, but this one here, your very old HMS Victory has been an almost constant kit on catalogue since its release. Why has it not been retooled like your other big sellers do? And I'm saying that because I've said before, the Concorde, I'm just putting it out there. When I built the Airfix one, and I mentioned it to Dale, and I said, why don't you do it? And he goes, we've got other projects we want to do, and it doesn't really sell well. And I think it's like the same with the Vulcan, that once you've built that Concorde, you'll never build it again from Airfix because it's not the best one. And then, so if you do re-release it again and say, the first and last, like you did, people can look at it and think, well, I've built that before, 10, 20 years ago, and it wasn't that good then. They're not going to improve it now. So surely you would think, because it's not selling so well, you would then reinvest and go, right, we're going to do a brand new Concorde that's going to be accurate, better than because Revell's one's even 20 years old.
I'll jump in because you'll have to ask Ethan some Ferret questions in a minute. But it's sort of, I'm just reading some of the comments down the side as well, and HMS Victory as well. It's something we're really conscious of, is that if you build a kit of a subject and you don't like it, and it's from a particular brand, in this case Airfix, you're less likely to return to that brand. Starter sets was an example of that at the lower end of the market for those beginning. That if you build a terrible kit as your first build, you'll never come back to the hobby. So try and it there. And these ongoing, why haven't we released Nimrod? Why haven't we done Victory and all the ones down the side there? Time and designers is the answer. The subjects were done for a reason. They're popular. So Nimrod is a popular design. And when there's this strange period between the Hornby years, so just before the Hornby years, 2006 and before to about 2000, where if it was done there, TSR2 72nd fits into this bracket as well. Yeah. We generally don't regard it's not old enough for what we call a vintage classic, which obviously is a way of warning the audience. This is older, but it's all about nostalgia, and it's not good enough for what we gauge our current standards to be. So it doesn't belong in a red box, as we say. So you can't release them because Nimrod, it's like a wobble board. It's there's no structure inside, so it's really flimsy. TSR2 is lacking in some places. It's definitely not up to what we could do nowadays. But it's maybe too soon to re-release because they're not actually that old. And in that meantime, there are a whole load of subjects that need ticking off. I think my boss Martin, the head of R&D, he made a list when he took over Airfix in 2006, 2007 when it came into Hornby. Nothing on that list. There's nothing we've done that hasn't been on that list. There are the likely subjects, suspects that everyone mentions time and time again. And then the other British, because we are very British centric sometimes, subjects that have to be done to create a range. So the reason we haven't retooled HMS Victory, why we haven't done, so-and-so, the list is endless, is because we're working through it. We'll get and every now and then we have to surprise people and put out a Ferret. So
that's it. I was going to go back to Ethan anyway. So it kind of going. This is the trouble with you live streams because there's so many people watching who've got all these questions. It kind of does divert, but we've got plenty of questions about the Ferret Scout because one of them is I was really impressed with the jerry cans.
Oh yeah.
Seriously, I'm not taking the the way you put them together and you do the handle separate. All right, that spout was, you know,
It is tiny, isn't it? That is by far the tiniest bit.
that well, it's just a blob. I think because once you
Yeah.
glue it, it just melts.
Yeah.
But why did you put so much emphasis in designing that jerry can so well? Because it is really. I was trying to look at it, and I'm just trying to work out how you would have done it, because it's the handle that is the issue, isn't it? It's that 3-pronged.
Yeah, exactly. It's a
handle.
little weird if you just pull it just fully across
Half and
and
half, yeah.
gap.
But I thought these are the sort of things I like. Is I think that the research and the actual design is that the sort of thing then that you could then take from the Ferret if there's other vehicles that have jerry cans and put them. So you have to redesign that part somewhere else.
Thinking, Moz.
But no, it's that thing where it's we'll have loads of stuff in like the CAD library of three parts from different things. That'd be the same in aircraft and I'd say different vehicles where you can pull things from stuff that they've used it before. I'm trying to think of any examples. You probably know more than me.
My mind has gone blank immediately. Spitfire, a lot of the CAD data is shared between the family of Spitfires in the range.
Copy some across. I mean, it's normally the thing like the bigger parts like fuselage and stuff like that you have to do again. But smaller parts you can just pull across from other bits in the CAD library. It's all saved on there, so whether you're in a different way or just need the kind of shape or bits like that, you can bring that all across.
Yeah, that's what I was just wondering, whether there's other aspects of this Scout that you've pulled from other kits, or will there be bits here that you would take to others? Like, but it just said I keep going on about, but it's fantastic. The only criticism I did have is I would have liked to have been able to position the wheels.
Yeah, we did have discussions about this, didn't we? Where we were trying to get a certain amount of posability going, I'd say like left and right in it. And it's basically where those two, the kind of support for the wheel goes together, it changes in slightly. And we were messing around with making that bigger and bigger, but then it just wasn't going in properly, or it's all looked wrong.
Yeah, I mean, and then if you go right, we want to be able to go onto full steering lock, you have to do a whole new set of suspension, and that is a lot of parts you then have to extend and change.
Just looked really weird when because as I say, we normally like 3D print stuff beforehand, so we do get to test things like that, and it's just shouldn't it?
Yeah,
I was just thinking of making it like a ball at the end, and then you could just attach the wheel to like the ball, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, it's on a spigot, it's only connecting at one place, but if you look at the way that the suspension and obviously all the steering linkages work, it's not just as simple as having one point that pivots. There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
No, a ball will make it pivot that way as well.
Yeah.
So,
but that's obviously only, but other than that, I think it's a complete model. And I think it's a good, I've said to people, if they want to get into 135th armor, this is a really good step to get into. Now, with the likes of Tamiya, you've created the ambulance. Tamiya have now released it in 148. Ethan, are you been tasked with making this into a 148th version?
As I say, Dale's behind the glass window. He's looking at me.
Yeah, go.
He's got a double there ready.
It's
the hole's already 6 foot deep. Don't dig it any deeper.
Moving on, Ethan. You did the Ferret. What was it like moving from the Ferret to the Land Rover? Was it like more of a this is easy, or did you find some complex challenges doing the Land Rover as you did with the Ferret Scout? No, also I want to say was, I think, like if the artistic license with this, like you've done with some of the bits with the molding and everything, with the Land Rover, you've got more of a, people know a Land Rover more than they would spot errors in a Land Rover more than a Ferret Scout. Did you find that more daunting as well, or did you find the Land Rover a real lovely pleasure to design and build, etc.?
Oh, it's still been my favorite thing to design. Like, to me, it's a bit more something that I sort of time. I've grown up on farms basically my whole life, so I've seen more of that sort of stuff going around. and it was that thing. It's almost like the Ferret was, you know, trial by fire, straight in with what we thought would probably be simpler, and ended up being quite complex. Then going to Land Rover, where it's a lot simpler. And as I was saying before about those kind of like flat shapes, these really are just flat shapes, which gives it a little bit more license to split up and make it easier to build. It has those sort of different challenges. When it came to like stuff like detail, like I felt so much more comfortable because I've done so much detail on the Ferret that I felt like it's a bit of more of a breeze on the Land Rover. But from a starter set standpoint, it's obviously for new modelers and getting into the kind of their headspace. It's why, like, for example, the exhaust stuff isn't on there. They all CAD'd it up where we just knew, because it's so long and spindly, goes all throughout that kind of bottom section. It was just going to probably warp on the frames, as well as actually trying to build it and fix it. Was all going to, you know, the whole point is we want them to enjoy the build as much as possible, and we just weren't certain that with that in, that was going to happen. No, I really enjoyed doing the Land Rover, and it was so much quicker because I think the CAD on that's about 3 months, so half the time. And yeah, as I say, I think it's a great little kit. I really like that. Everyone will get it for Christmas. It's a bit of an ego thing, I guess, saying you can have one, you can have one. But yeah.
You say that, you'd be surprised how many quick builds I give away as Secret Santa gifts.
Yeah.
You know, when they come into Audi, I'm buying 10 of them because they do make really good ones and starter sets as well. So
yeah, I do that as well. You must enjoy my hobby.
We've got 10 minutes left because I know that you've only been given an hour with us, but I've got a couple of questions. Has anyone here on the panel got a question?
I've got a quick one, if that's all right. So you've designed these new tooling kits now. What is the sort of life expectancy of it before you have to consider doing it again or changing it in some way? I mean, how many goes can you get out of it?
Go on, Ethan, you answer.
That's probably you're the researcher, you're the planner.
Yeah, I am the planner.
You boss me about.
Yeah. I'm not even your boss. The life of starter sets is different to the life of a classic kit. As long as we can get away with is probably the answer. Starter sets are designed for the long haul. And when we say long haul, it depends on, you know, where we are in 10, 15 years. If we look back at it and go, cool, that's the dog's dinner compared to what we can do now. You know, it's hard to predict what we'll be able to do in terms of technology, where we'll be with it. I think I'd like to think it's slowing down now. You know, there was a big sort of increase in pace towards development when CAD CAM became a thing, obviously in the early 2000s and a bit before, and then sort of a perfecting and a refining. But we're now at a point where, you know, you can only refine so much. So the hope is sort of 10 to 15, maybe even 20 years for starter sets. And, you know, you just have to look at things like, look at Tamiya, for example. We used this in an example of a meeting the other day. If you look at their things like, I can't list them, but the late 90s, 97, their aircraft, the 72nd and 48th, they were releasing those up until the other year, and they were still considered to be good. So if you get it right first time, then, you know, 20 years seems to be about the life expectancy of any model kit across any brand at the moment. If you make a dog's dinner of it, you know, it's 10 years, and even 5 years on from releasing it, you'll be going, cool, do we have to release that? Because we go back to, if someone picks it up and builds it and it's a bad experience, it tarnishes your brand now and not the brand 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So you've constantly got to be on that. You know, when we release this in, say, 17 years' time and someone picks it up for the first time, Land Rover, will they turn around and go, cool, I never want to build one of those again because the standards of everything else is so high? Obviously, at the moment, no, they'll pick it up and hopefully go, wow, this is a beaut, even though Ethan's designed it.
Yeah, after 6 months, they're like, oh, this is terrible.
You know, it's something we have to consider. So how long is a piece of string, unfortunately? And it's something you have to evaluate year on year. So, you know, in 10 years' time, we'll look at the catalogue and go, oh, no, we'll get rid of so and so from 72nd and so from 48th. And unfortunately there'll be a time where we give a model its last hurrah. It can be quite sad when you go, this will be the last time this model will ever come out, in our opinion, because it doesn't meet our standards of today. So
I think it's that thing where like we're always pushing, the tooling as far as we can, and it is getting better and better. But it's almost that thing where the gap between the improvements is, finer and finer detail mainly, and there's only so far you can really go with what's even visible, I guess. So the kind of thoughts are that nowadays something should last longer than older kits because there's so much more you can do with kits nowadays. Like you wouldn't be able to get some of the details that we can manage to get from our tools just because they're so much more experienced than the technologies that's there, where 20, 30 years ago they were never going to be able to do it. Whereas I think 20, 30 years from now, obviously the processes will be better and the quality better, but you almost have that thing where the detail you're going for is so fine.
You reach sort of, you become marginal gains, don't you? So only very small increments of changes, whereas, the last 20 years, there have been leaps and bounds in the modelling industry. So, in 10 years, we might look back at this and go, cool, how wrong they were. There was a new technology came out the next day that revolutionised the market.
I've got 3 questions left. So I want to start with this one. These are for both of you. Is Airfix a job for life for you guys?
Well,
I hate to break it up. I'm gone tomorrow.
We're sacking him. No, I don't think you can ever say anything's a job for life. I think it depends on so many things. I think the question there is, is it an amazing job? Yes. Do we enjoy what we do? Yes. Do we know where we'll be in 10, 20 years' time? No. You can
After Dale's done with us.
Out on the street, who knows? You can never answer that honestly, can you? Because you don't know what's going to happen in the next decade, 2 decades.
It's just somebody that, and I wanted to do some generic questions for you both that doesn't necessarily mean, that it's specific to what you do in the rows. And the other one is, who do you think is your biggest competitor?
It's tricky, isn't it?
There's a lot going on in the model. Well, I could rephrase it. Who do you aspire to be? You can't aspire to be because you have to. You are Airfix.
Everyone aspires to be Tamiya, don't they?
That's what you always hear about.
It goes without saying, Tamiya are the bosses of the model market, so I think everyone is trying to keep pace with them. But everyone does something. Everyone's got their unique selling point, shall we say? Everyone does something differently that they do well. So you have to look at. No one's really a competitor because if you get into this, we're going to beat them sort of thing. It doesn't work. The modelling market isn't as big as it was in the 60s and 70s, unfortunately. It's a case of we're all happy families, and we try and avoid doing what they're doing because we've got our niche and they've got theirs. And obviously, if you release the same model at the same time, you both suffer because you halve your sales. So,
like Gecko.
I couldn't comment more, but it's not a good situation to be in for either of us. So we aspire to be people. We do speak to other modelling companies about where they might be going, and we can hint to where we're going so that we don't cross paths in that way. But it's someone who said it the other day. I think it was Malcolm from Models for Heroes said it's a symbiotic relationship, and that's what it has to be. People have to buy our kit, but then they go and buy from aftermarket companies. So if we do well, they do well, and so on and so forth. So competitors, just look at any of the big names that you see on any of the modelling forums. Edward, ICM, Tamiya, or Revell even. They're all competitors in their own way, but we sort of don't view them as such.
It's all good for the hobby. It's the sort of thing where we're all loads of doing so many different kits, and there's just more options people have, the more people get into the hobby, and resources, the more you can kind of play around with that. So
That being said, if they don't buy anything in the red box, they're dead to me.
Yeah, a few weeks left as these ferrets don't sell. So
But they're out of stock, aren't they? The Ferret.
yeah.
So that's a sign that it's gone down well
Yeah.
for our first 35th in-house design 35th model in probably 10, 15, 20 years.
I wasn't even. Oh well, no.
Well, that must have been something for you, Ethan. That must have been on your shoulders. That this was the first in-house designed.
Yeah. When I was told I was doing it, and I was like, oh yeah, this would be a really cool subject. They're like, yeah, it's our first kind of foray going back into like 35th. So there'd be a lot of expectation. I'm like, okay, a bit nervous. That's good. You want a bit of nerves, really, because a bit of pressure. Pressure forms diamonds. That's what it
does.
is.
Cool. Yeah. but also, I'll be honest with you. I'm an Airfix fanboy, and I own it. I proper own it. I don't just build Airfix models. I collect vintage Airfix stuff. Like these just come on to the other day. These are Airfix. These were made by Airfix. If you know these from the 70s, you know exactly what I mean. And I own it. And I'm quite. But I find that Airfix is marketing, online presence, the fact that you guys are willing to come on to creator streams. And it was, Dale reached out to myself originally on the Spitfire day, and he said he contacted. Well, I was on Jonathan Mock's Interest Modeling Company. I just popped in and say hello, so I try to support other live streams. And he goes, Moz, love what you do with the Vinci Classics. Can you get in contact with me? And then I ended up meeting you guys and giving you an earful about why you need to do a Bearcat. If you remember, Luke, I always say that the squeaky wheel always gets the oil, gets the grease. And I think that the way Airfix have now promoted themselves right out there with social media, I think that people are starting to take real notice of you. And to be fair, and I don't think people realise that you're under the Hornby branding, still, the Hornby Hobbies branding. But you've come out there fighting strong, and it's just been absolutely fantastic to see the engagement because we used to moan on Twitter about something and nobody would ever respond. But now I think you're hitting the right points, and you're winning hearts and minds back because of that. So with that question, where do you think Airfix will be in 10 years' time?
We're going to be ruling the world, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Empire.
Yeah. The Airfix empire taking over, toppling governments. Well, hopefully, sort of where we are now, but bigger and better, I think is all you can hope for.
I think my thing is, I say with start sets and things like that, the whole point is getting people into the hobby as much as providing for the people who are currently in the hobby. And I certainly know a lot of my friends and their younger siblings and stuff like that are really starting to come back in after all the pandemic stuff, taking a bit more time to enjoy it. So where I think I see us going is, providing a lot of stuff for that sort of audience, as well as producing even bigger and better kits. I think with the tooling capabilities we've got now, and the better stuff we can put in our designs, just see it getting better and better. Really, the quality of kits.
I think what would be really nice is after we've, I keep mentioning starter sets, but where we've obviously invested a lot in that end of the market, would be in 10 years' time. We have people coming up to us and going, oh, I remember that model. A bit like people do with vintage classics. That's what they went to Woolworths and bought with their 2-bob or whatever.
Yeah.
I'd like people coming up and going, my first model was, and something that both Ethan and I were involved with, would really be quite encouraging. And so it proves that what we're doing is right, in that we are trying to get that generation into it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, modelling would die off. There's a stereotype, and we're trying to change that, aren't we?
Being at Bovington and at Tank Fest, and people coming up to Dale saying, I drove this in Ireland, and hearing their stories. I think you picked a fabulous subject, and I think there's going to be hundreds of people whose first model will be that Ferret Scout, just because they were so predominant in conflict. It's a hard thing to say, conflict, especially in the world today, but it is a conflict vehicle, and saved their lives you know.
Yeah.
I think that there's going to be there's a lot of people who've going to say to you in 10 years' time, say, do you know what, the first kit, you know, and also I'm surprised you've not thought about making it into a gift set, you know, straight away. I would have added paints, glue, and a paintbrush and made it into a gift set, because it isn't a difficult build, really. And at 1/35th, you know, it's not fiddly, really. You know, there are some bits, you know, like the handles and stuff are quite small. Some little tiny details there. Like
we'd have to combine it with something. So maybe we do what Border are doing and do 35th. What's a contemporary of Ferret? You know, like aircraft.
Ferret.
Something to go alongside it. Aircraft, vehicles.
Yeah.
People.
I'm not going to deny it. You know, gift sets are underused by Airfix. I had a friend of mine, his children bought starter sets from Airfix at Lidl, and I'm best friends with their dad, and they said, oh, you want to speak to Moz? He does modelling. And I said, come round, you can have some of my kits. And they came round, and I gave them some of the kits that I got given, like I think it was like an ME260 I got from Airfix when I was at the Creator Day. And it was put back because there was no paints in them. Oh, they thought they come with paints. So I thought, so you know what? I wish I could have given these kits with the paints, because they're not going to go out and buy, you know,
you'll be amazed, and it's something we see all the time at shows. You'll be amazed at the amount of people that go, "What? I have to cut it all out and stick it together." You know, to us, it's obvious, but you know, it shows that there's a whole generation of people out there that didn't grow up with it or know anything about it. I realise we're at 2:06, and you know,
we've got. I know. I just my final question, which I've been asked.
I was going to answer one of your commenters on the side here, Miles.
Go on, then. Go on, yeah. I've got one last question, but you carry on with what you want to ask.
Yeah, okay. So the Sprue and Glue said, do you input help into other colleagues' work? Yes, yeah. So Ethan sits in the same area as all the other designers.
Yeah.
So you sort of all feed into each other's designs.
Yeah, 100%. It's that thing where, especially because this was my first major CAD project. Matt's always going to be helping me as our design manager. Chris, who's been here ages now, senior product designer. Pramjet, Adam, all of them, just asking them questions about, it might just be about the tools or how some things are going together, sizes. A good example will always be panel lines, like what sort of size should they be if I'm doing cutting sweeps, showing kind of my build order process. Obviously, sometimes it's all in your head. You're staring at like this blank screen, just grey CAD, and it's all blown up. You've got an idea of how it's all going to work, but you definitely have to discuss with other people so they can have some input. Otherwise, you get a bit lost in it. So,
we booked the meeting room. Fair play. One final question I've been asked this numerous occasions: how close are we to get the Gannet into our hands?
We always aim for these things for Telford, but unfortunately, I don't think it is going to hit. That's not far away. So the aim is November, but where in November it probably lays sort of towards the end, as far as I'm aware. So don't go shouting that from the rooftops, because I might be wrong. So just
Dale straight in already. No, we have it.
Well, whilst they're arguing amongst themselves, we're going to clear off then. So
honestly, lad, from all of us here on Airfix and Chill, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It has been wonderful.
No,
you are welcome. Yeah, sorry, go on, Matt. I was going to say, you are welcome on Airfix and Chill anytime. So if you've got something you want to say, or we can arrange another Wednesday meeting. So normally Airfix and Chill's on a Monday in the evening. I know you boys have got families and you don't want to be talking scale models outside of things. But if there's anything you ever want to do and or put out there or want to chat about, you're always welcome. So, but again, I can honestly say, I think for all those who are watching, we've had over one point, had 100 people watching at one point. It's been a pleasure to have you on, and we all here thank you so much for being on. What's that?
See you later.
the chat.
Where's Corgi?
Let's go. We got them all on here now.
Right, we'll see you later, guys. Thanks for having us.
God bless you. Thank you all for watching. See you next time. Cheers, Anyways, that's it. Wow.
Yeah.
What do you reckon then, boys? Was that good?
Yeah, it was a chuckle.
It was a chuckle, definitely. And
Yeah,
we're jumping on now.
they're looking at us. We can't answer that.
Like Corky said, they don't book it.
I'm heading off. Farewell.
Bye.
Right, gents. I think that's it. Thanks for joining me on the panel tonight. Today, I should say. Isn't it interesting? You know, it's there's so much going on there, and I think we only know a tenth of it, don't we? You can see that they've basically I think Airfix is definitely going in the right direction. I'm just laughing at you've got them all in here now.
Yeah. I just need Humble to chip in. Humble be like, you have a meeting room?
Yeah, he did that. He said, Humble, well, we've booked the meeting room.
Humble.
That's what he said.
Moss has got a printer.
Yeah, Humble there. Yeah, but the printer. Yeah. Anyway, I think that's it from Airfix and Chill. We've had an hour, and
I'm starving.
Going back to having their dinner now. Going back to work from their dinner. So
Yeah.
we'll say goodbye, and we'll see you on Monday. Thanks all. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.